Hey, it's Marcia. This is the IDOE required training that we need for all teachers this year. I'm going to try to keep it quick and to the point. It's about English language learners, ELL. All of those acronyms pertain to English language learners that you see on this slide. The new emerging acronym will be MLL. You'll see that in upcoming years. Indiana has been out of compliance for English language learners since ESSA several years ago, and the IDOE has given us until this September of 2022, to follow those guidelines. All schools, regardless of if we have one English language learner or we have 100, we all still have to follow those same guidelines from the Department of Ed. When we do have an English language learner, this is how we support them. So the first way we support an English language learner is we have to identify who they are. That is done with the home language survey when a student enters school. Once we identify an ELL, we assess that student with the WIDA screener, and then if that student doesn't test fluent in English, we notify the parents with a notification letter, and we write up an ILP for that student. It's like an IEP, it's accommodations for English language learners. And then we assess them annually, usually in January, with the WIDA access test. I'm going to spend a little extra time on this slide because this is where many schools are falling out of compliance during audits, and this has to do with the home language survey. So like I said, that's how we identify our English language learners. There are 3 questions on it that ask the language of the student in the home, the language spoken most often by the student, and the native language of the student. If on any blank something other than English is written, then that student is screened. So they could put English on 2 of the blanks, but French on the 3rd, and we still screen them. What happens with this home language survey is, once a student fills this out in the state of Indiana, this home language survey follows them from school to school to school. So if they transfer from our school corporation to, say, EVSC, this goes with them. EVSC could not give them a new one. The same thing goes if the student comes to us from EVSC. This form comes with them. We cannot give them a new one. So whenever we are enrolling students, we have to be very careful that if we're enrolling in person and we're giving them a paper packet, we don't have the home language surveys in the packet, or we have a form that says, do not fill this out if you are if you are a returning student in the state of Indiana. The same thing goes if we were doing an online enrollment. We would have to have a question that says, is this your first time in Indiana schools? And if they said yes, then we could populate a home language survey for them. If they said no, then we could not give them a home language survey. And that's something that gets checked for in an audit, that every student has only one home language survey in their folder. And it doesn't matter if it's an English language learner or a non-English language learner. Every student in the corporation needs one and only one survey, home language survey, in their permanent record. Like I said before, ELLs use WIDA as their fluency test. They still take all of the other state tests that everyone else takes. And when they take the WIDA test, we give them a fluency level from 1 to 5 that helps us decide where they fall on the can-do descriptors. If you have an ELL in class, I'll be sharing a Google folder with you soon, and inside that Google folder will be more information about the level and how to use the can-do descriptors. An English language learner will have 2 different things attached in that folder that I talked about. One will be the ILP, which provides their accommodations like extended time. The other one will be their WIDA scores, which tells you their fluency level for those can-do descriptors. It will be listening and speaking and reading and writing, and they'll have a different score in each area, and then an overall score. And this one, the student score is a 2.7, and that rounds down always on WIDA. That student who was a level 2.7 in writing rounds down to a 2. If we look at the level 2 here on this writing can-do descriptor, it tells us that student can label or illustrate, and that's all we can grade that student on. If we're teaching plot of a story to a student, and we want the other students in the class to maybe write a paragraph about it or something like cause and effect, but in this instance, this student is only capable of labeling or illustrating something to do with that plot. So when we give the student the grade on this, that's the only thing that we can grade them on, is what they can do with the language level. English language learner students can progress at different rates in different areas. So if you have a student in your class who is, say, a level 3, and they're succeeding already without you using any of the can-do descriptors or anything, you don't have to go back and use them. We don't want you to. we only want you to scaffold when scaffolding is necessary. A student might start the year off at a level 2 and end up at the end of the year at a level 3.5. So that student can go beyond the level that we think they're in before we get the test results back to show that. Also, a student can be doing a wonderful job in writing and struggling at speaking. So you may have to scaffold for a speaking assignment but not for a writing assignment, or vice versa. We do have to follow the can-do descriptors one more time if the student is struggling. And if a student fails a class, for example, there is a form that has to be filled out, and we do have to provide evidence of assignments that have been adjusted to the can-do descriptor level for that student. If you do have a student who's failing a class, please contact me long before that so I can get with the student. I can help you adjust your assignment so that it meets the can-do descriptors if you need me to. And also remember that just because a student seems fluent in conversation with you, that doesn't mean that a student is fluent in academic language. So a student might be able to write sentences about their family, but they surely are not going to be able to write about the life cycle of a frog if they don't have the technical vocabulary available to them to write about that. And it's just a normal process because of vocabulary acquisition. And at that point in time, you might have to go back and use some can-dos for a little bit, pre-teach some vocabulary to lift that student up again. It may happen that you have a student who has an IEP for special ed and also an ILP for being an English language learner. In that case, the student does have 2 teachers of record. It's absolutely fine. The accommodations on both the ILP and the IEP must be followed. We do need to remember that we cannot put a student who's an English language learner, we can't just refer them to be tested for special education without a little bit of extra research and a few extra forms. So if an English language learner does need to be tested for special education, we all need to work together and have a conference just to make sure that we are following the correct procedures on that. So here's the big game changer from the Department of Education that no one has been doing before and we have to be doing this year. All English language learner students, they have to have an additional 120 minutes of English instruction above and beyond what everyone else is getting each week. So that we've done, but also the person who is delivering that extra instruction has to be either an ELL licensed teacher or a teacher who is licensed who is receiving ongoing training from someone who is an ELL trainer. That's me. So the licensed ELL teacher is called the teacher of record, so I would be the teacher of record for students. But if a licensed teacher is providing the services under the instruction of SIOP, which is what we're going to use, that teacher is called the teacher of service. And we are going to use something called SIOP as our way to meet this Indiana Department of Ed requirement. SIOP, although it is made for English language learners, has a lot of benefits because it's good outside of ELLs. It helps with all instructions. It's really a way to differentiate. Also, if you do the SIOP training, you can receive professional growth points. It's free. With Indiana having the fastest growing ELL population in the US right now, I think we are up 58% over the last 3 years. This is a valuable skill because if you don't have an English language learner in your class now, odds are you're going to get one over the next couple of years. And by the way, SIOP stood for Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. I know some of this is new and it sounds like a lot of work, but we're going to work together and we can get through it. First of all, let me know how I can help you. Email me at any time, ask me questions. I am working in 2 different school corporations, so it might take me a little bit of time to get back with you, but it's never going to take over 12 hours. So if you email me, I will usually get back with you within an hour, but I mean, give me a little bit of time. Also, we have training coming soon for people who do have ELLs in class. We'll break down things that are going on with the ILPs, the WIDA testing, the SIOP method. We do have access to translated forms, so if we have students whose parents do not speak English, we are required under Title III to provide all school forms and communication to parents in a language that they understand. We do have access to all of those forms in Transact that we can print out, and if you want to communicate with a parent, you can send, you can have them download the Talking Points app. You can send anything home via email, via text messages, however you send newsletters. You can send it all home to these parents and they can receive the same thing that everyone else is getting, but through the Talking Points app, they can select to receive it in the language that they speak. and that also counts. It's great for your class and great for communication, but it also counts for us on our audit to stay in Title III compliance. One more time, if you need anything, let me know. My name is Marcia Mishler. You can find me in the email. Talk to you later, and good luck, everybody. Have a great school year.